we're gonna write some code for our enemy, and we're gonna call this, let's add a brand new script in C#, simple enemy AI, create and add that. We can start coding some behavior for our enemy there, Bart. So I'm going to start off with a state machine. I'm going to call this enemy state. It's going to be an enum. So these are the different states that our enemy can be in. So tracking and attacking for now. So let's talk about these. When we're just moving between waypoints, I'm going to call this state patrolling. So this is nothing exciting is happening in Bob's life for now. He's just going to be following Bart, not Bob. He's just going to be following his waypoints one by one, very earnestly, going from one to the other. Now, if we happen to get within a certain range of Bart, he's going to come looking for us. So he can smell blood and he's coming for us. And that state is going to be known as tracking. So patrolling, following the waypoints, tracking, following the player, or chasing down the player, looking to get some of those lovely brains. And then attacking would be he's within range of actually swinging. I'm going to swing for us, and he can do some damage. So in our actual game, we're going to let's make a state called state. We're going to want a reference to the player. We're going to call that player, and I'm going to set this as a public variable. We're going to need reference to the waypoints script, because when we go from a patrolling state to a tracking state, we have to actually break off from following the waypoints. So we need some way of disabling. We need some way of disabling that waypoint system, and the bit that I need is called waypoints traveler. And I'm just going to call this waypoints. That should actually go. Call this waypoints script, and that should be solved by. So we can't find a reference to the script because I've not imported the script. So if I go into using and go to waypoints free, that should take care of that. I'm going to make a public float, and we'll call this distance for tracking, and we'll do something similar. Make another one called distance for attacking. Let's talk about what these two are. When we are closer to the enemy, then this value here, we will break off our waypoint system and we'll begin to follow the player. So this is the this is like the sight, essentially. If we're lower than this distance, then the zombie can see us, and once he sees us or smells us, he's coming for us. So the smaller this is, the closer essentially we can get to the zombie without him wanting to kill us. The bigger this distance is, the further away we are, he can still find us. Once we're in a tracking state, if we get close, so the tracking state is we'll break off our waypoints and we'll begin to follow the player. And once we get close enough to the player, and that closeness is defined by distance for attacking. So once we're inside this value, we can actually begin to swing for the player. So we can actually attack the player. Public float, and we're going to call this attack frequency. So this is the time between attacks. If I could spell. Yeah, frequency. So if he swings for us, he has to wait. The enemy has to wait a certain amount of time before he can swing again. So a couple of things must be true here. He has to be inside the distance for attacking in order for the zombie to attack us, and after he's attacked us once, he has to wait a certain amount of time. Otherwise, he will just go crazy and just continuously attack us over and over again once he's inside this distance. So the attack frequency gives a bit of time between attacks. Okay, and in order for us to count that, we have to have a timer. This doesn't need to be public, so we'll go private float, and we'll just call this timer equals 0.0f. And we also need to count the time since the last attack. So we'll go private float time since last attack. And we'll set that to 0. And the last thing we're going to need is a reference to the animator. And we'll just call this enemy animator. Animator. We'll have a function called initialize. Inside this initialize function, we're just going to set up our initial values. So we'll state equals enemy state, and we're going to start off in the patrolling state. And then we'll get our waypoint script. Let's go ahead and grab that. Waypoints traveler. I should really be much more consistent with my naming, so look for that. So go enemy animator. Grab that equals get component. Okay, there you go, animator. So I'm going to call this update state, and this is going to be called once per frame. And then the first thing we need to do is get the distance. So I'm going to call this distance to player, and we're going to get that as a vector3 dot distance, and then that's going to be the player dot position against the transform dot position of where the enemy is. And now that we've got the distance, we can use that in our calculation. Let's check if the distance to player is less than. And in fact, what I'm going to do is not make this as a local variable. I'm going to make this as a class variable because we're going to pretty much need it all the time. Okay, and is less than distance tracking. This is incorrect. I'm going to do this right now. All right. So what I need to do is check what state we're in. So if our state is enemy state dot patrolling, I'm going to change this from enemy to monster. I think monster is more appropriate since it is monster. So let's just go to rename this monster state. Yeah, I think that's more. That to me sounds. That's more in line with what it should read like. So if we're in the patrolling state, so we're just at this point in time following our waypoints, Now, if distance to player is less than distance for tracking, what we need to do is change the state, and we're going to set that to monster state dot tracking, and let's write this correctly. We also need to disable our waypoints, so we're going to say false. That's what we're going to do. Let's go into our tracking state. So we're going to say if state is tracking, we need to do a couple of things. In fact, we can't do this right now because we need to make a nav agent. So the nav agent is going to allow the monster to wander around the scene back in Unity, and what I want to be able to make is a nav mesh agent. However, I cannot, because the package isn't installed. There is no nav mesh agent, and the solution to that is I need to install this by the name. So I need to take that name and I need to follow these instructions. So I need to go and do that. Okay, so I go back to package manager and I do plus this as a git URL and see what that does. Oh, it worked. Well, it looks like it's working. Now that we've got the whole nav mesh situation sorted out, we can go to create empty with nav mesh and add a component to this, and we can, there we go, add nav mesh surface. I'm going to keep everything as a default. If I go to bake, there. So what we've done, the turquoise color there represents all the walkable parts of our scene. We need to go over to Bart and we need to add to him a nav mesh agent. Bart has a nav mesh agent and there is a nav mesh surface on the scene. He will be able to navigate himself around all the turquoise area of the scene. So this now requires a modification of our script. So if we go back to our script, we now need to have a nav mesh agent. Mesh, and there is no nav mesh autocomplete, which probably means we're forgetting something. Oh, we need to be using Unity Engine .ai. So we grab AI. Okay. Come back to this and we go nav mesh agent, there we go, and we'll just call this nav agent. And what we will do is come down to our attached parts of our initialized script and we'll say get component and we'll say nav mesh agent. Right. And that should be everything. And what would also be useful, since we made this function, is to call this function. So we're going to call initialize, is we'll get our nav mesh agent. What did I call it? Nav mesh agent. Nav mesh agent sounds right. Nav mesh agent. And we're going to say dot set. We're going to say dot set. We're going to say set destination. And the destination we want is our player. So we'll say player. We'll say player dot position. Player. So if we go debug dot log, and we'll say distance to player is, and we'll output this variable and we'll save that. We also need to call update state onto this. And the other thing which would be useful is if we actually also outputted the state. So we'll say once the state is, and so now we should just be able to see the two things. So simple, and we said distance for tracking, I'm going to say is 5, just an arbitrary choice. Distance for attacking, I'm going to say is 2, again just a very, very arbitrary choice. I'm not sure starting from here is a wise thing to do, simply because I might already be close enough for the zombie to start tracking me. So I'm going to start further back, and we'll give this a bash. And what we're going to do, we've got some warnings, just some stuff about the timer not being used, which is fair enough because we haven't got to that point yet. If I play this, oi, that's not good. Got a whole bunch of stuff here that's gone wrong, which is normal for me. The variable has not been assigned. Let's see what's not been assigned. Let's go to this. Ah, yes, that makes perfect sense. So in here, I want a reference to the player, but I've not assigned the player, so we'll just throw that guy on there. Okay, clear that, play that again and see what the new error is. There is no new error. Okay, so my distance to play is 15, and at 15 I'm patrolling, which is good, because at 15 I should be patrolling. Now I should be getting closer, and there you can see Bart just going from side to side. Brains, one brains, but I'm not close enough yet. Now if I go closer than 5, which I'm coming up to now, here we go, there, boom, there you go. Suddenly he chased us. I don't know, now he's spinning in a circle. He was doing quite well for a little while. He's gone back into the tracking state, and that's why. No, he should still be in the tracking state. I'm not sure why he's spinning in a circle. Okay, so let's fix the script. First of all, there's one very obvious mistake. So I've got a float distance to player, and then I've re-declared it. So those are being created as separate variables. I've had a look at this, and the main thing is, and a rather silly mistake, is that this is its own state. So this tracking does not exist inside. Does not exist inside of patrolling. It's its own thing, and you would do that if you weren't patrolling. You would check for tracking, but you wouldn't check for tracking only if you were already in patrolling. And I appreciate how completely confusing that sounds, but hopefully the code is slightly clearer. This was just me debugging. So let's see what this is doing. If we are in a state of patrolling, if we get to underneath distance to tracking, we're going to leave this tracking, we're going to leave the patrolling state and change that to tracking, and we're going to disable the waypoints because we don't need them anymore. And now as a separate if statement over here, if we are tracking, we're simply going to chase the player. So let's save that and see if that gets us closer. We don't get just a spinning in a circle zombie. So if we come back to this, and so let's just keep an eye out there. So again, so we're 12, and now the zombie's doing something else. Great. What's he doing? Oh no, yeah, he found us. Okay, he's doing something completely different. Maybe that's because I disabled Waypoints Traveler. Maybe that's why. And if I come back into here, okay, so if I re-enable the waypoints, now if I could sneak up on Bart, oh there he is, okay, good, brains, looking for brains, and I am 9 away, and now if I get to within 5, there, that's what I wanted to see. There he is. He's just completely obsessed with chasing me down. I have no escape. Help. Can't even shoot him. There you go. He's just going to get right up in your grill. And you cannot shake him. Doesn't matter what I do. He's just, there he is. Like, just see his midsection. Alright, there you go. There's a scary sight. There. We're going to change the stopping distance from 0 to 1.5. So that's just going to keep him slightly further away from us, and he's very, very fast right now, so I'm going to change that to maybe 1.5, and let's just see what effect that has. So at this point, I am in my zombie game. Okay, I'm gonna go find Bart. There he is. He's wandering around, waypoint to waypoint, not a care in the world. And suddenly, at 5, boom. Okay, now he's chasing. Not chasing quite as fast, but he's chasing. I might come back and change that to a run animation. I think a run, maybe once the monster's seen us, he runs towards us. I think that would look pretty cool. Go back into Bart and go into my monsters folder, go to Bart, and then I'm gonna go into my animator, and that's that guy there. Okay, and I'm gonna transition, I'm gonna make a brand new transition, and what I want is a run. There's a run. Okay. So I'm in place, and I'm gonna make a transition between the two. Okay, I'm gonna make a transition there, and I'm gonna make a transition back. What I want is a trigger. So from my Z walk to my run, I'm going to base that upon a trigger. I'm gonna add, oh, I don't want a new layer. So I'm gonna delete that. Go to parameters, gonna make a brand new trigger. And we're gonna call this run trigger. And we'll set that to blank. And then going back to walking, we're going to set that, make a new float, make a new trigger. We're going to call that walk trigger. Okay, and then from this, we need to set the condition. So from there you go. I'm just going to set that run trigger, and then to go back from running, and we'll go back from running to walking if we get far enough away from Bart that he doesn't want to chase us anymore. He's given up and he's going to go back to his waypoints. Now, the other thing is exit time. Exit time. If I keep this button checked, the walk animation will complete its cycle and then transition into the run animation. But actually what I want is, as soon as I hit the trigger, I do not want to wait for walk to finish its animation. I want to go straight into run. So I'm going to disable the has exit time, and so now you can see that there's that little gap, and I believe if you bring this back all the way here, it should, yeah, that's what I want. Let's use this. So now we are going to say, let's get this enemy animator. When we start tracking the player, we're going to disable the waypoints, and we're also going to set animator set trigger, and I'm going to call this run trigger. I believe I had a capital T. I might be wrong. I'm not wrong for once. Okay, so run trigger. So once we're within distance, we're going to go into the tracking state, and we should transition into the run animation, and then all we're going to do right now is continue to chase the player. So we come back to the scene, and then let's have a look. Let's see what we get. It'll be useful to actually look at the animator as we're doing this, but we'll do what we can. All right, so we're patrolling. Oh, yeah, there you go. He's not moving fast enough. It's some kind of weird fitness routine that he's doing, just running on the spot. Okay, and that can be easily fixed. So what we need to actually do is change our speed. Let's change our speed from that to that. We could also change the speed of the animation. But let's just change our speed. So now should move to us slightly faster. Okay, so there is this walking, waypoints, waypoint, run trigger. Right, not bad, not bad. Okay, and then he does nothing. Once he gets it, then I actually know what he wants to do. I still feel very short compared to Bart. Maybe the player should be a bit taller. I don't even know that makes a difference because he's on a rigid body, so he'd probably just fall back to the ground. Most likely did. I probably need to come back and stretch them. Okay, right, let's test that one more time, because why not? Oh, there you go. Hey. Run, 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 run. In the next video, we will complete the AI script by allowing the zombie to damage the player. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.